Welcome back to Papal Profiles. This episode looks at the papacy of Pope John XXIII, remembered as the Good Pope, which began as yet another compromise candidate. Elected after 11 ballots at nearly 77, he was widely expected to serve as a transitional, caretaker figure. Instead, drawing on his background as a historian and diplomat, John immediately signaled a different direction. Where his predecessors had entrenched the Church in a defensive posture against modernity, John recognized a recurring historical pattern: periods of stagnation followed by renewal. His conclusion was simple but radical: the Church must adapt to the modern world or risk irrelevance. One of his earliest symbolic and substantive acts came in 1959, when he removed the word perfidious from the Good Friday prayer for the Jews. The term, long understood as derogatory despite official defenses of its Latin meaning, had become emblematic of entrenched Catholic anti-Judaism. Its removal marked a quiet but significant break with centuries of hostility and signaled John's broader commitment to reforming the Church's relationship with other faiths. This move foreshadowed the more sweeping changes that would follow, particularly in the context of Jewish-Christian relations during the Second Vatican Council. That same reforming mindset found its most dramatic expression in John's announcement, just months after his election, of the Second Vatican Council. Framed as an updating, the Council was intended not to condemn the modern world, but to engage with it. In contrast to earlier councils dominated by papal control, John invited bishops from across the globe to shape the agenda, along with theologians, laypeople, and even non-Catholic observers. The symbolism of his announcement, tied to the week of prayer for Christian unity and delivered at St. Paul outside the walls, underscored his vision: a church opening itself to dialogue rather than retreating into dogma. John's outreach extended far beyond internal reform. He expanded the College of Cardinals to better reflect the global Church, elevating figures from Africa and Asia for the first time. He reached out to Protestants, Orthodox Christians, and other religions, rejecting the long-standing assumption that unity required submission to Rome. Instead, he acknowledged that responsibility for Christian division was shared, a striking departure from earlier Roman Catholic rhetoric. Even amid Cold War tensions, John positioned the papacy as a moral voice for all humanity, most notably during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where his quiet diplomacy helped provide a path for de-escalation between the United States and the Soviet Union. As the council preparations unfolded, John encountered fierce resistance from conservative elements within the Church, particularly in the Roman Curia. Draft documents were filled with the same condemnations and anti-modernist language that had defined earlier decades, threatening to undermine his vision. John responded decisively, insisting that the council must embody mercy and engagement rather than judgment. In his opening address, he sharply rebuked these reactionary voices, criticizing those who saw the modern world as nothing but decline and who, in his words, had learned nothing from history. This rhetorical dismantling of his opponents set the tone for the council and ensured that it would proceed in the spirit of renewal he intended. In 1962, the Second Vatican Council formally opened, embodying John's vision of a more collegial and outward-looking Church. Unlike the authoritarian style of earlier papacies, the Council welcomed debate and diverse perspectives. It marked a fundamental shift from a Church that had aggregated power into the hand of popes who simply proclaimed from on high to one that sought dialogue with the world, an institutional transformation rooted directly in John's leadership. Facing terminal illness in 1963, John turned his attention to what he saw as his final legacy, the encyclical Pacem in Terris, Peace on Earth. Addressed not only to Catholics but to all men of goodwill, it broke new ground by emphasizing universal human rights rather than ecclesiastical authority. The document affirmed human dignity, equality, and the moral limits of state power, even asserting that governments which violate human rights lose their binding authority. While it contained internal tensions and stopped short of challenging certain entrenched doctrines, it nevertheless represented a profound shift in how the Church engaged with modern political and social realities. Pope John XXIII did not live to see the conclusion of the Second Vatican Council, but his impact was decisive. From the reform of the Good Friday prayer to the calling of the Council, from global outreach to his confrontation with internal opposition, John transformed the tone and direction of the papacy. His legacy lies not only in the reforms that followed, but in the shift he embodied, from condemnation to dialogue, from isolation to engagement, and from rigid certainty to a, briefly, more open, historically conscious Church.
Thanks for watching. Please check out the other videos on my channel if history is your thing, and see you next time.